My God, you had 2 first-round picks, and you had a quarterback who, and the consensus going into that draft, I remember this vividly, was San Francisco's either going to take Rodgers or Alex Smith with the number 1 overall pick, okay? So this is an era where both of those guys were considered being worth that high a pick. And yet nobody, when Smith went, nobody said, okay, we got to get up to 3 to take Rodgers, right? I've always said this. In retrospect now, or if you redid that draft today and Rodgers was free falling through that draft, somebody takes him. And you had 2 picks at 19. So let's eliminate 7. You thought we're going to fill a need, and Troy Williamson is the great. He's going to be our Moss. You're totally wrong. You're goofed up. But let's just say that they
from Lou Holtz's offense in
South
Carolina.
But let's just say they make that pick, okay? Let's say they make that pick at 19. At 19, Aaron Rodgers, who some people thought was worth the first overall pick, is still there. Wouldn't you have been tempted to take him there if you were the Vikings? Wouldn't you have been at least tempted?
See, I got to believe, and actually I know
maybe they were.
I know this for a fact. It's not even a belief that there were legitimate red flags with Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback that caused him to slip all the way to the point that he slipped to in that draft.
There were. But it solidifies my point even more.
NFL teams aren't that, like, people look at Aaron Rodgers now and they look at him going with the 23rd pick in the draft and they go, there must have been 22 teams that were complete morons. And that's simply not the case. Like, these are really smart football people in the front offices of most NFL franchises. And for 22 of them to agree that this guy wasn't worth that pick, there had to be something there. And I can tell you, there were not just something, there were things there with Aaron Rodgers that legitimately and rightfully caused him to slip to the point in the draft that he slipped to.
But I believe that what you just said backs up my point even more, because the Packers were brilliant in the fact that while having Brett Favre, who was aging at the time, the Packers took Rodgers based on the fact that they had the luxury, which the Vikings would have felt too at the time, of time. Because if you guys recall, the main football knock on Aaron, and it was probably 100% accurate, was he's coming from Cal, and he's coming from a Jeff Tedford system, and his mechanics are awful. He has bad mechanics. He has mechanics that he needs to be taken to a side field as much as possible, right, for that first year. So we're not talking about a guy stepping in and playing. We're talking about a guy who needs to be taken to a side practice field for the majority probably of his first year, if not the entire thing, and have those mechanics that Tedford had employed with Aaron coached out of Aaron. So the Vikings could have said exactly what Green Bay said, which is, okay, we've got a good quarterback who we like, but this guy who was a potential top pick who's got some problems needs more time. At 19, we can take him. So I actually think the argument for the what if on the Vikings taking Aaron wouldn't have been at 7, it would have been at 19.
But you still had what you thought was a good quarterback at that point in Dante Culpepper before the change in coordinator, before Randy Moss leaves in free agent, before any of this stuff. You had
no Moss is gone.
Or Moss is gone. Okay.
This is with Moss gone. So 19 was actually the Vikings pick. 7 was Oakland's pick that you got in that trade.
Randy got traded in February? Like, it was like right after the season.
Yeah, it was like March, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
February or March.
Yep.
But you hadn't seen Dante Culpepper minus Randy Moss yet, is what I'm saying. You just thought you had this stud of a quarterback. And yeah, you probably thought, well, yeah, he's throwing to Randy Moss. That makes things a little bit easier. But I remember watching, actually, I had Dante Culpepper on my fantasy football team at the time and was loving it because he was a giant. He could run. He had an arm where he could throw the football to any place on the field, from any place on the field with the flick of a wrist. Like, he looked like the next big thing as far as quarterbacks go. And I don't know that, like with Brett Favre and the Packers situation, you had a guy who for 2 years at that point, if not more, had been talking about retirement at the end of every season that he played. So they were like, all right, we got a plan for the future. With Dante Culpepper, you had a young, what looked like can't miss franchise quarterback. And to use a first round pick on a quarterback when you already have that and he's still young just seems kind of wasteful, doesn't it?
I'm just saying you had
it's easy in hindsight now.
Yeah, yes, of course. I just think it's a fun discussion, which I don't dismiss because of the fact that at least some teams and scouts perceived Rodgers as a potential first overall pick. So we're not talking about a third-round QB. I just think it's an interesting scenario to play out. And privately, too, the Vikings had to know, okay, Dante had a great 2004, but the coaching was fantastic as well. And now your coordinator's gone. There were just a lot of interesting things, I think, that would have given me, with that 19th pick, at least cause to pause there and say, this guy's a really good quarterback. He's got some mechanical problems that we can clean up, but he's still there at 19. Phil freaked out. Like Mackie and I got in a huge fight. So I just don't think that you can dismiss the idea.
You were saying
no.
Okay.
I said this a couple of years back because of the 2 picks.
And that was a draft that did not go well for the Minnesota Vikings
in
2005.
I think everyone was gone by 2008?
Yeah.
That entire draft class was gone.
I can go back through.
I think that entire draft class was gone. Williamson's last game would have been the last game of, I believe, 2007 in Denver when a ball, he dropped a pass over the middle, but there was also probably the nicest deep ball that Tavares Jackson threw in his entire career. Yep. Troy didn't just drop it. It went off his face mask.
I remember that.
And I think the entire draft class was gone by about 2008. The entire thing. No one left. It was a disaster.
They, okay, I have all of their picks here in front of me from 2005. All right, so number 7, they went Troy Williamson. 18, they went Erasmus James.
18, not 19, excuse me.
Second round, pick 49 was Marcus Johnson, the offensive tackle from Ole Miss. I remember him.
I think he was the last member of the draft class
that was
to survive. That was on the team, yeah.
The third round pick was Dustin Fox, the corner from Ohio State. And I don't think he ever played a game for the Vikings, did he, Judd?
I
think he got injured in preseason, maybe.
I think he's a broadcaster now, by the way.
Yeah, in
talk show host in Cleveland or something.
Cleveland, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't think he ever played a game for the Vikings. I think he got hurt in
that's very possible.
Maybe a training camp or something, and just never ended up playing. Fourth round pick was running back Cedric Faison from Florida. I remember him.
Underwhelming,
yes. Could forget.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, 6th round pick, defensive tackle. I think he was with the Vikings, and then I think he came back. C.J. Mosley.
Oh, they traded. He was actually a pretty good player. No, they traded him. I don't think he came back. They traded him to the Jets for Bollinger.
Okay,
and then he went on to the Jets.
Came back though for like a.
Oh, I don't recall that, but he played. He played for the Jets and was actually pretty good for a few years.
And then the 7th round pick and final pick of that draft for the Vikings was Adrian Ward, cornerback from UTEP.
That was the draft class. That was not good.
No, that is not a good draft class.